I'm Allison Mitchell, 34, and after 12 years of deafening silence, my phone just lit up with a text from my estranged parents. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat in my Manhattan condo, the very one my cousin Taylor had innocently posted on Instagram last week. The message was brief but audacious. Family emergency. Need $39,000. Call immediately. No hello. No how are you. Just a demand for money from people who couldn't remember my birthday but somehow remembered my phone number when they spotted my success. Before I dive into this wild story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had family members who only remembered your existence when they needed something. Growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I was the invisible child. Our modest two-story house in a middle-class neighborhood looked perfectly normal from the outside. My father, Richard, worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, and my mother, Karen, was an administrative assistant at a local insurance company. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't struggling either, at least not financially. Emotionally was a different story. From my earliest memories, it was clear who mattered in our family, my older brother, Jason. 3 years my senior, Jason was the golden child, the athlete, the social butterfly who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I was the afterthought, the obligation, the extra mouth to feed. When I was 7, I won first place in the school science fair with a project on plant photosynthesis that I'd worked on for weeks. My parents promised they'd come see my display, but they never showed. Later that evening, I found them in the backyard, throwing a baseball with Jason, practicing for his upcoming game. When I showed them my blue ribbon, my mother glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey. Did you see that catch Jason just made?" By age 9, I'd grown accustomed to disappointment, but one incident stands out with painful clarity. We were at Southgate Shopping Center, a mall about 20 minutes from our home. My mother was shopping for clothes for Jason's middle school graduation while I trailed behind them, invisible as usual. When I stopped to look at a display of books in a store window, they simply walked away. I didn't notice at first, engrossed in the colorful covers promising adventures far from my reality. When I finally looked up, they were gone. For 3 hours, I wandered that mall alone, too afraid to approach security, convinced my parents would return any minute. They didn't. Eventually, a kind store manager noticed me and called security. My parents were paged over the mall intercom system. When they finally appeared, my mother's first words weren't of relief or concern, but irritation. "We've been looking everywhere for you. Why did you wander off?" They hadn't been looking for me at all. They had completed their shopping, gone home, and only realized I was missing when they were unpacking the car. They'd forgotten me, plain and simple. My salvation came in the form of my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who seemed to be the only one who noticed the neglect. During family gatherings, she would make a point of asking about my interests and achievements. When I started winning academic awards in middle school, Aunt Patricia was the one who celebrated with ice cream and praised my hard work. She'd whisper encouragement, "You're going places, Allison. Don't let anyone dim your light." High school intensified the divide in our family. While Jason struggled academically but excelled in baseball, earning a modest athletic scholarship to a state college, I poured myself into studies and extracurricular activities. I joined debate team, wrote for the school newspaper, and maintained a 4 gigapascals. I was determined to prove my worth through achievement, since love seemed unattainable. My high school graduation fell on the same day as one of Jason's baseball tournaments. I wasn't surprised when my parents told me they wouldn't be attending the ceremony. "Jason's team could make state finals, Allison. You understand, right? It's just walking across a stage." "We'll celebrate later," my father said. We never did. Aunt Patricia attended my graduation, cheering loudly when they called my name as valedictorian. She took photos and treated me to dinner afterward. When I showed her my acceptance letter to Princeton with a substantial academic scholarship, she hugged me fiercely. "You did this all on your own despite everything. I'm so proud of you." My parents' reaction to Princeton was predictably underwhelming. That's all the way in New Jersey. Isn't there something closer to home? My mother asked, as if they'd miss me. What she really meant was, who would do the laundry and help with dinner while they attended Jason's games? The night before I left for college, I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases, all I had to show for 18 years of existence in that house. My parents were at Jason's baseball banquet. I left a note saying goodbye, secretly hoping they'd call and wish me luck. They didn't. That was the first step in my journey toward freedom, though I didn't realize then how many more painful steps lay ahead. Princeton was like stepping into another dimension. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence and ambition. My scholarship covered tuition but not room and board or books, so I worked 3 jobs, shelving books at the university library in the mornings, serving coffee at a campus cafe between classes, and tutoring fellow students in mathematics, economics on weekends. Despite my hectic schedule, I maintained a perfect GPA and gradually began to build friendships. My roommate, Rachel Coleman, a vibrant art history major from Seattle, became my first real friend. She noticed how I never called home and rarely mentioned my family. "You know it's weird," she said one night as we studied in our dorm room. "Most freshmen are homesick and call their parents constantly. You never do." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the observation. Nothing to tell them. Rachel's persistence eventually broke through my walls. One night during our sophomore year, after a particularly difficult exam week, she convinced me to join her and some friends for pizza. After a few slices and a beer, I found myself sharing stories about my childhood that I'd never told anyone. Instead of the pity I feared, I received understanding and outrage on my behalf. "That's not normal, Allison," Rachel insisted. "Parents aren't supposed to forget their kids at malls or miss their graduation for a baseball game." Those words, "that's not normal," were revolutionary to me. I'd normalized my parents' neglect for so long that hearing someone call it what it was felt both validating and terrifying. By junior year, I had cultivated a small but loyal group of friends and caught the attention of Professor Bennett in the economics department. He recognized my aptitude for financial analysis and became a mentor, suggesting books challenging my thinking and, eventually, recommending me for a prestigious summer internship at a financial firm in New York. That summer internship was transformative. I excelled in the fast-paced environment, impressing my supervisors with my analytical skills and work ethic. When I returned to campus for senior year, I had a job offer waiting for me after graduation. Everything was finally falling into place until I hit an unexpected financial wall. Due to changes in the scholarship program and a tuition increase, I found myself short $15,000 for my final year. I'd saved diligently from my jobs, but it wasn't enough. After exhausting all other options, I reluctantly called home, the first time I'd initiated contact in nearly 3 years. My father answered on the fourth ring. "Hello," he sounded exactly the same. "Dad, it's Allison." A pause. "Oh, everything okay?" "No, how are you, or nice to hear from you. Just checking if there was a problem." I swallowed my pride and explained the situation, asking if they could co-sign a student loan for my final year. I emphasized that I would be responsible for payments, that I already had a job lined up after graduation, that all they needed to do was sign. "I don't know, Allison. That's a lot of money. Let me talk to your mother and call you back." They didn't call back. After 3 days, I called again. My mother answered this time and immediately went on the defensive. "We just don't have that kind of money to throw around, Allison. College is expensive and we're still helping Jason with his bills." I hadn't asked them for money, only a signature, but that distinction didn't matter. What did matter was what I discovered during that conversation. They had paid for all of Jason's education at the state university, covered his apartment rent, and recently bought him a new car for graduation, despite his mediocre grades, and fifth-year senior status. "I'm not asking you to pay," I said, my voice trembling with barely controlled anger. I'm asking you to co-sign a loan that I will repay. I have a job lined up at Cooper and Hargrove starting at $60,000 a year. I just need your signature. Well, maybe you should have chosen a less expensive school, my mother replied. Princeton is for rich kids anyway. You've always had to prove you're better than everyone else. The conversation devolved from there. My father eventually took the phone and delivered the final blow. You're so smart, Allison. Figure it out yourself. The line went dead. I sat on my dorm room floor, phone in hand, and for the first time since I was a child, I cried about my parents. Not quiet tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that alarmed Rachel when she returned from class. She held me while I explained what happened, then marched me to the financial aid office the next morning. With her support, I applied for emergency aid, took on an additional tutoring job, and secured a small personal loan with the help of Professor Bennett, who vouched for me with his own credit union. Graduation day arrived in May. As I stood in my cap and gown, Princeton's iconic Nassau Hall behind me, I surveyed the crowd of proud parents and family members. Mine weren't there, of course. But Rachel, Professor Bennett, and a surprise visitor, Aunt Patricia, who had driven 8 hours to see me graduate, formed my chosen family in the audience. After tossing my cap in the air, I made a silent vow I was done seeking approval from people incapable of giving it. I was cutting contact with my parents, not out of spite, but self-preservation. As I walked away from Princeton that day, diploma in hand, I was walking toward independence in more ways than one. Chicago welcomed me with its famous wind and anonymous freedom. I chose it over New York for my first position as a financial analyst at Wayland Partners, a mid-sized investment firm. My starting salary of $62,000 felt like a fortune to someone who had subsisted on ramen and coffee for 4 years, but Chicago's cost of living quickly humbled me. My first apartment was a studio in Rogers Park, far north of downtown. It was small, barely 500 square feet, with a kitchenette that could hardly fit a toaster and a bathroom where my knees touched the wall when I sat on the toilet. But it was mine, paid for with my own money, no strings attached. Those first months were lonelier than I'd anticipated. Rachel had moved to Los Angeles for a gallery position. Professor Bennett was back in New Jersey. Aunt Patricia lived in Pittsburgh. I worked 12-hour days trying to prove myself at a firm where most analysts came from wealthy families with financial connections. I was the scholarship kid, again, the outsider. My saving grace came in the form of Sandra Williams, the head of my department. In her 50s, impeccably dressed with a no-nonsense attitude and sharp intelligence, Sandra was what I aspired to become. She noticed my tendency to work through lunch and stay later than everyone else. "You're not getting paid overtime, you know," she said one evening, finding me still at my desk at 8 o'clock. "I know. I'm trying to understand this client's portfolio structure. Something doesn't add up in their offshore accounts." She studied me for a moment, then pulled up a chair. "Show me." I walked her through my analysis, pointing out discrepancies that had bothered me. By 9 o'clock, we'd uncovered a significant accounting error that could have cost the client millions. The next morning, Sandra called me into her office. "You saved us from a major embarrassment yesterday. Not many first-year analysts would have caught that." She paused. "Where did you learn to be so thorough?" I considered my answer carefully. When no one's looking out for you, you learn to pay attention to details. Something in my response resonated with her. Sandra became my professional mentor, teaching me not just about finance, but about navigating a world where family connections often mattered more than merit. "Make yourself indispensable," she advised. "When you're the best at what you do, it doesn't matter where you came from." 6 months into my Chicago life, I received an unexpected call from Cousin Taylor, Aunt Patricia's daughter. 2 years younger than me, Taylor and I had never been close growing up due to distance and my isolation from family gatherings. "I got a job in Chicago," she exclaimed. "Graphic design position downtown. Aunt Patricia gave me your number. I don't know anyone else in the city." Despite my hesitation about family connections, I agreed to meet her for coffee. Taylor was bubbly and artistic, nothing like her mother's quiet practicality or my intensity. She chatted about her new job, her tiny apartment in Wicker Park, and her excitement about city life. "Mom always said you were the smart one," she said suddenly. "She told me how your parents treated you. That's messed up, Allison." Her frankness was refreshing. We began meeting weekly for coffee or dinner, a tenuous connection to family that felt safe rather than threatening. By my second year at Wayland, I had received my first promotion and a modest raise. I moved to a slightly larger apartment in Lakeview, started contributing to my 401k, and even took a weekend trip to Michigan with Taylor. I was building a life brick by careful brick. Then my parents showed up. I came home from work one October evening to find them sitting in the lobby of my apartment building. 3 years had passed since our last conversation. My mother had gained weight. My father had lost hair. They looked older, tired, but I recognized the calculating look in their eyes. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keys still in hand, ready to retreat if necessary. "Can't parents visit their daughter?" my mother asked with forced cheerfulness. They followed me upstairs to my apartment, making small talk about the building, the neighborhood, the weather, anything but the years of silence between us. I offered them water, nothing more. "You seem to be doing well for yourself," my father observed, eyeing my modest furnishings. I waited. People don't travel across states just to comment on IKEA furniture. Finally, they reached the point. My brother Jason had started a landscaping business that was struggling. He needed capital for equipment, $8,000 to be exact. They had already helped him all they could. Banks wouldn't approve a business loan due to Jason's poor credit. "We thought since you're doing so well in finance, you might be able to help your brother out," my mother concluded, as if this were the most natural request in the world. "Let me understand," I said slowly. "You haven't spoken to me in 3 years. You wouldn't co-sign a student loan for my final year at Princeton. But you flew to Chicago to ask me for $8,000 for Jason." They had the decency to look uncomfortable, but not ashamed. Never ashamed. "Family helps family, Allison," my father said firmly. "Jason would do the same for you." I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "No, he wouldn't. And we both know it." What followed was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. They invoked family loyalty, Christian charity, and my obligation to help the brother who had never once helped me. When that failed, they switched to guilt, how difficult my childhood personality had been, how I'd always been jealous of Jason, how I'd abandoned them by moving so far away. "I didn't abandon anyone," I stated flatly. "I was forgotten. There's a difference." My mother's face hardened. "So that's it, you won't help your own brother." "That's it," I confirmed. "I won't be an ATM for people who couldn't be parents." My father stood abruptly. "If that's your attitude, maybe we did raise you wrong. A decent person would help their family." "I agree," I replied, opening my door. "That's why I'm saying no. A decent person doesn't enable financial irresponsibility." As they left, my mother delivered her parting shot. "If this is how you're going to be, don't consider yourself part of this family anymore." I closed the door behind them, leaned against it, and whispered to the empty apartment I never was. 2 years after my parents' unexpected visit, life had taken a decidedly positive turn. At 28, I had been promoted to senior financial analyst at Wayland Partners, leading a small team of 3 junior analysts. My salary had increased to $89,000, allowing me to move to a nicer one-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park with a small balcony overlooking a tree-lined street. I had even started dating occasionally, though nothing serious had developed. More importantly, I had begun therapy with Dr. Cassandra Martinez, a psychologist specializing in family trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me understand that the emptiness I'd carried since childhood wasn't my fault. You've been operating in survival mode for so long, Dr. Martinez observed during one session. Achievement has been your shield against rejection. But what happens when you achieve all your goals? Will it be enough? Her question haunted me. I had built my life around proving my worth through accomplishments, but to whom was I proving it? My parents didn't care. I was the only one keeping score. I was working through these revelations when the third betrayal blindsided me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was preparing for a client presentation when our receptionist called. "Allison, there's someone in the lobby insisting on seeing you. He says he's your brother." My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen Jason in nearly 5 years. What could possibly bring him to my workplace? When I reached the lobby, Jason was pacing impatiently, looking disheveled in cargo shorts and a wrinkled polo shirt. At 31, he still had the athletic build from his baseball days, but his face was puffy, his eyes bloodshot. Finally, he huffed when he saw me. "They wouldn't let me up without your permission, like I'm some kind of criminal." I maintained a professional demeanor, acutely aware of the receptionist and security guard watching us. "Jason, why are you here?" "Mom and Dad's 25th anniversary is next month," he said, as if this explained everything. "We're planning a surprise party. I need your contribution." I blinked, processing the audacity. "You came to my workplace to ask for money for a party." "It's not just about money," he protested, though his expression said otherwise. "It's about family. You owe them this much, at least." "I don't owe anyone anything," I replied evenly. "Please leave. I'm working." His face darkened. "Always so high and mighty, aren't you, Miss Princeton, Miss Financial Analyst? Too good for your own family." "Jason, I'm asking nicely. Leave now. Not until you give me something for the party. 500 should cover it." When I turned to walk away, he grabbed my arm hard. "Don't you dare walk away from me!" Security intervened immediately. As they escorted a shouting Jason from the building, he yelled threats and obscenities that echoed through the marble lobby. "You'll regret this. They were right about you, selfish bitch, after everything they did for you." I returned to my office, closed the door, and tried to stop shaking. Within an hour, the incident was office gossip. Whispers followed me to the bathroom, the break room, the elevator. By day's end, Sandra called me into her office. "Are you okay?" she asked, closing her door. That looked intense. I nodded, embarrassed. "Family drama. I'm sorry it spilled into work." "Don't apologize for other people's behavior," she said firmly. "But Allison, if you need help with anything, restraining orders, security concerns, the firm will support you." Her words reminded me that not all authority figures were like my parents. Some actually protected those in their care. The Jason incident, while humiliating, proved to be a catalyst. I realized Chicago held too many ghosts, not just my brother's scene, but memories of my parents' visit, the constant fear of running into them or Jason again. When Sandra mentioned a prestigious position opening at Barrett Global Investments in New York, I decided to apply. The application process was grueling: 6 rounds of interviews, a case study presentation, and a personality assessment. I prepared obsessively, working late into the night after therapy sessions where Dr. Martinez helped me address my imposter syndrome. "You deserve this opportunity because of your skills and work ethic," she reminded me. "Not to prove anything to anyone else." When the offer came, investment consultant at $115,000 plus bonus potential, I accepted immediately. New York represented not just career advancement, but a psychological fresh start, 3 states, and a world away from my biological family. As I packed my Chicago apartment, Taylor helped, expressing a mixture of happiness for me and sadness for herself. "Who am I going to have brunch with now?" she pouted, carefully wrapping my wine glasses. "You'll visit, I promised. And I'll fly you out for your birthday." "You better," she grinned. "I want to see this fancy New York life you'll be living." Little did I know how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how that fancy New York life would eventually bring my parents crawling back into my orbit with disastrous consequences for us all. New York City in autumn was everything I'd imagined during my brief internship years. Earlier, crisp air, golden light in Central Park, the energetic pulse of a city constantly reinventing itself. My new position at Barrett Global Investments challenged me intellectually and rewarded me financially. Within 6 months, I had settled into a rhythm that felt right, demanding workdays balanced with exploring my new home on weekends. Finding an apartment had been my first major challenge. New York's real estate market was brutal, especially for someone with specific requirements and no local connections. After viewing 17 depressing rentals, I decided to consider purchasing instead. My savings from Chicago, combined with a surprisingly generous relocation package from Barrett, made this possible. The condo I eventually found was in a converted pre-war building in the Murray Hill neighborhood. Not the most prestigious Manhattan address, but respectable and convenient to my midtown office. At 850 square feet, it wasn't large by Midwest standards, but for New York, it was substantial for a single person. The selling points were the 10-foot ceilings, original hardwood floors, and a small terrace overlooking a tree-lined street. At $680,000, it stretched my budget to its limit. But as I signed the mortgage papers, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. No one could take this from me. Decorating my new home became a therapeutic exercise. Each carefully chosen piece, the midnight blue velvet sofa, the brass and glass coffee table, the abstract paintings from local artists, reflected choices made solely for my pleasure. No one else's preferences mattered. The space became a physical manifestation of my independence. Reconnecting with Rachel was an unexpected joy. My college roommate had relocated from Los Angeles to Brooklyn 2 years earlier for a curator position at a Chelsea gallery. Our reunion dinner lasted 5 hours, years of separate experiences pouring out over bottles of wine. "I can't believe we're both here," she marveled. "Remember when we used to talk about New York like it was some fantasy land?" "I remember you promising to introduce me to eligible New York men," I teased. True to her word, Rachel invited me to an art opening the following week, where she introduced me to David Carraway, a tall, soft-spoken architect with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that immediately put me at ease. Unlike the aggressive finance types I usually met in my professional circle, David asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to my answers. Our first date was a walking tour of architectural landmarks in Greenwich Village, followed by dinner at a tiny Italian restaurant. Our second was the Metropolitan Museum of Art. By our third date, I was already imagining what it might be like to build something lasting with someone who valued me for myself, not what I could provide. "My family's a bit overwhelming," David warned before inviting me to Sunday dinner at his parents' brownstone in Park Slope. Very loud, very Italian-American, very opinionated. I smiled. Overwhelming sounds wonderful compared to underwhelming. The Carraway family was indeed overwhelming. David's parents, his 2 sisters, their husbands, 5 nieces and nephews, and his elderly grandmother all crowded around a dining table laden with enough food to feed twice their number. They welcomed me with genuine warmth, asking about my work, my apartment, my adjustment to New York. When David's mother, Maria, asked about my family, I gave my standard vague answer about growing up in Ohio. She noticed my discomfort and skillfully changed the subject, but later, as I helped her wash dishes, she gently said, "Family is complicated sometimes. Know that you're welcome here, no questions asked." I nearly cried into the casserole dish I was scrubbing. The simple kindness of making space for me without demanding my story felt like a gift I hadn't known to ask for. As months passed, my relationship with David deepened, as did my career success. I was assigned to manage the portfolios of several high net worth clients, including a Saudi prince and a tech entrepreneur who had sold his startup for 9 figures. My bonus that December was larger than my entire first-year salary in Chicago. I used part of that bonus to fly Taylor to New York for a weekend of tourism and shopping. My cousin had blossomed in the years since our coffee dates in Chicago, becoming more confident in her graphic design career and developing her own distinctive style. "Holy crap, Allison," she gasped when she entered my condo. "This place is gorgeous." I gave her the tour ending on the terrace with its view of the Chrysler building in the distance. "Can I take a picture of you out here?" Taylor asked, already pulling out her phone. "The lighting is perfect right now?" I posed somewhat self-consciously against the railing, the Manhattan skyline behind me. Taylor took several shots, showing them to me for approval. "I'm posting this one," she decided. My cousin, living her best New York life. Number goals, number Manhattan skyline, number success story. I laughed at her hashtags but didn't object. What harm could a single Instagram post do? 3 weeks later, I discovered the answer to that question. It started with an increase in family members viewing my LinkedIn profile, distant cousins, my father's brother, even a high school friend of my mother's. Then came Facebook friend requests from relatives who had never shown interest in my life before. Finally, Aunt Patricia called with a warning. "I thought you should know," she said, her voice concerned. "Your parents have been talking about you at family gatherings." "What are they saying?" I asked, though I could guess. "That you've become wealthy in New York but refuse to help your family. That you've forgotten where you came from." Karen showed everyone Taylor's Instagram post of your condo and made some comments about how you could afford such a nice place while poor Jason is struggling. The familiar knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. "They're lying, Patricia. They haven't asked me for help." "I know that," she assured me. I told Karen as much. "But I wanted you to be prepared. They're spinning a narrative." After hanging up, I called Taylor, who was mortified. "I'll take it down right away. I never thought Aunt Karen would use it like that." "It's not your fault," I assured her. "You couldn't have known." But the damage was done. Within days, I began receiving messages from extended family members. I barely remembered their tones, ranging from curious to accusatory. "Heard you're doing well in New York. Nice place you've got there. Family should help family, you know." The worst was a direct email from my Uncle Robert. "Your mother is heartbroken that you flaunt your wealth while ignoring your brother's financial troubles. What kind of daughter does that—" I showed the messages to David during dinner at his apartment that Friday. He read them with growing disbelief. "This is insane," he said finally. "They ignore you for years, then ambush you through distant relatives when they think you have money." I nodded, pushing food around my plate. "Welcome to the Mitchell family dynamic." David set down his fork. "Allison, you've told me bits and pieces about your childhood, but I think it's time I heard the whole story." That night, curled on his couch, I shared everything: the neglect, the favoritism, the missed milestones, the betrayals. David listened without interruption, holding my hand, his expression shifting from shock to anger to deep sadness. "I knew your relationship with them was strained," he said when I finished. "I had no idea it was abusive." Abusive. The word startled me. They never hit me. Neglect is abuse, Allison. Emotional abandonment is abuse. He pulled me closer. "I'm so sorry you went through that. And I'm in awe of the person you've become despite it." His validation broke something open in me, a dam of emotions I'd carefully contained for years. I cried in a way I hadn't allowed myself since that night in my college dorm room, great heaving sobs that left me exhausted but somehow lighter. In the weeks that followed, I declined all contact from extended family except Aunt Patricia and Taylor. I focused instead on strengthening the connections that actually nurtured me, with David, with Rachel, with colleagues who respected my work. When David suggested we host Thanksgiving for our chosen family that year, I embraced the idea with unexpected enthusiasm. The holiday gathering in my condo, Rachel and her boyfriend, two of my favorite coworkers and their partners, David's sister Julia, who couldn't travel to their parents' home due to pregnancy complications, was chaotic, imperfect, and wonderful. As I looked around my dining table at these people who chose to be in my life rather than demanded entrance due to blood ties, I realized I had built something my parents had never given me, a home where I belonged. 3 years passed in a blur of professional accomplishments and personal contentment. At 31, I was promoted to Director of High Net Worth Client Services at Barrett Global, managing a team of 8 consultants and a collective portfolio worth over $4 billion. My annual compensation, including bonus, had crossed the $500,000 mark, a figure that still occasionally caused me to wake up in disbelief. David and I had moved in together, combining our lives in a larger condo in Gramercy Park that we purchased together. The night we closed on the property, he proposed on our new terrace, a vintage emerald ring in hand. "I want to build a life with you," he said simply. "A real family, the kind we both deserve." I said yes without hesitation. At 31, I had finally learned that love didn't have to be earned through achievement or perfection. It could be given freely without conditions or expectations. Our engagement coincided with my biggest professional triumph to date. I had successfully managed the 9-figure portfolio of tech billionaire Elliott Simmons through a volatile market period, not only preserving his wealth but increasing it by 12% when comparable portfolios were losing value. Elliott was so impressed that he referred 3 other ultra-high net worth individuals to Barrett Global, specifically requesting me as their consultant. The firm rewarded me with a substantial bonus and a feature in their quarterly newsletter, which was distributed to clients and industry partners. The article, titled "Barrett Global's Rising Star," included a professional photograph and a brief profile highlighting my education and career trajectory. It was the kind of recognition that opened doors to even greater opportunities. Taylor visited shortly after the article was published, eager to see our new place and celebrate my engagement. Now 29, my cousin had matured into a successful designer at a prominent Chicago advertising agency. Her Instagram following had grown to over 50,000, drawn to her artistic eye and stylish aesthetic. "This view is even more incredible than your last place," she marveled, stepping onto our terrace overlooking the park. The spring evening was perfect, warm, with a gentle breeze, the Manhattan skyline beginning to glitter as twilight descended. "Let me take your engagement photos out here," she insisted, pulling out her professional camera. "The lighting is magical right now." David and I posed somewhat awkwardly at first, but Taylor's direction and enthusiasm soon had us laughing and natural. She captured beautiful images of us together, then insisted on taking some solo shots of me for the family wedding announcement. "What wedding announcement?" I asked, suddenly wary. "The one I'm designing for you, silly," she reassured me. "Nothing's going online without your approval." I relaxed and let her work her magic, posing with the skyline behind me. The resulting photos were stunning, professional quality images that captured not just my appearance, but the confidence and joy I felt in my life. "These are amazing, Taylor," I said sincerely as we reviewed them on her laptop. "You have a real gift." "Can I post just one?" she pleaded. "I'll be vague about location, I promise. It would be great for my portfolio." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Just one, and no tags about wealth or success this time. Taylor selected an image of me alone on the terrace, the sunset painting the sky behind me in dramatic oranges and purples. Her caption was tasteful: "Evening light in NYC with my beautiful cousin. Portrait photography. Natural light." 2 days later, my phone began buzzing with a call from a number I didn't recognize but instantly knew the area code was Cleveland. I declined it, but the caller persisted, immediately redialing. After the 4th attempt, I blocked the number. Within minutes, a text arrived from a different Cleveland number. "Allison, this is your mother. Emergency situation. Need to speak with you immediately." Jason in serious trouble. Please call. I stared at the message, my heart racing. Despite years of therapy, my first instinct was still concern, still the need to help. I showed the text to David, who had witnessed enough of my family dynamics to be suspicious. What kind of trouble would require an immediate call after years of silence? He asked reasonably. If Jason were in the hospital or jail, they wouldn't be texting you. He was right, of course. I put the phone away and focused on preparing for an important client meeting the next day. But by evening, 3 more texts had arrived, each more urgent than the last. The final one made my blood run cold. Your brother facing serious legal charges. Need $39,000 for attorney retainer by Friday. Know you can afford it from Taylor's photos. This is your family, Allison. There it was. The real emergency money. Not concern for me, not a desire to reconnect, not even a congratulations on my engagement. Just a demand for funds with a side of manipulation. I showed David the messages. His face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. This is extortion, he said flatly. They're using emotional blackmail to get to your wallet. I nodded, surprising myself with my own clarity. They saw the terrace in Taylor's photo and made assumptions about my finances. Are you going to respond? David asked carefully, respecting my autonomy even in his concern. No, I decided. But I'll call Taylor to warn her. And I should probably find out what kind of trouble Jason is actually in just to be prepared. A quick social media search revealed the likely source of Jason's legal troubles. A local Cleveland business journal had published an article 3 weeks earlier about a landscaping investment scheme that had defrauded several senior citizens. Jason's company, Mitchell Outdoor Solutions, was named specifically with allegations that he had collected investment funds for non-existent landscaping contracts. I forwarded the article to David. Looks like he graduated from asking family for money to scamming strangers. This is serious, David observed. Securities fraud carries significant penalties. And they expect me to bail him out, I said, the realization settling heavily. They think I'll pay for his lawyer because I have a nice apartment and a good job. What are you going to do? I thought about it carefully. Nothing. His actions, his consequences, I won't enable criminal behavior even if he is my brother. The next morning, my email inbox contained a message from my father, the first direct communication in years. Allison, your mother is distraught over Jason's situation. As his financial consultant's sister, you have contacts that could help. At minimum, we need $39,000 for his defense attorney retainer by Friday. This is what family does. Don't make your mother suffer more than she already is. Not a word about my well-being. Not a question about my life. Just a demand disguised as a family obligation with a hefty dose of guilt for seasoning. I drafted and deleted 5 different responses before settling on a simple, direct reply. I will not be providing financial assistance for Jason's legal defense. I suggest consulting a public defender if funds are limited. The response was immediate and vitriolic, a lengthy email detailing my selfishness, my coldness, my failure as a daughter and sister. The final paragraph was particularly telling. You've clearly forgotten where you came from living in your fancy New York apartment with your Wall Street money. Your mother and I sacrificed everything for your education, and this is how you repay us. By abandoning your family in their time of need. We'll remember this betrayal, Allison. I forwarded the email to my therapist with a brief note, the past is calling. Literally. Her response was equally brief. Answer machines exist for a reason. Screen accordingly. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Saturday morning, 3 days after my father's angry email, I was enjoying coffee on our terrace with David when the building doorman called up. Miss Mitchell, there's a couple in the lobby insisting on seeing you. They say they're your parents and it's an emergency. Ice flooded my veins. How did they know where I live? They have my address. The panic in my voice prompted David to take the phone. This is David Caraway, Miss Mitchell's fiancé. Please do not send these people up. We did not invite them and do not wish to see them. He listened for a moment, then covered the receiver. They're making a scene. The doorman wants to know what to do. I closed my eyes, weighing my options. Ignoring them might escalate the situation further. Calling security would create a spectacle. Seeing them seemed like the least disruptive choice, though the most personally painful. Tell him I'll come down, I said finally. But I'm not bringing them up. David insisted on accompanying me. As the elevator descended, he squeezed my hand. Remember, you're in control here. We can leave any time. I'll follow your lead. The lobby of our building was elegant marble floors, brass fixtures, a small seating area near the concierge desk. My parents looked jarringly out of place, my father in a golf shirt and khakis, my mother in a floral blouse and slacks. They had aged visibly since I'd last seen them in Chicago, now in their early 60s, with gray hair and deeper lines around their eyes. My mother spotted me first rushing forward with an expression of relief that might have seemed genuine to anyone who didn't know better. Allison, thank God, we've been so worried. I stepped back, maintaining distance. What are you doing here? You wouldn't answer our calls, my father said accusingly. What choice did we have? You had the choice to respect my boundaries, I replied evenly. How did you get my address? They exchanged glances, a silent communication I recognized from childhood, deciding which version of reality to present. Your cousin Taylor mentioned Gramercy Park in her post, my mother admitted. We called some hotels in the area pretending we needed to send you an emergency package. The third one mentioned this building had a resident named Mitchell. The calculation, the deception, the violation of my privacy, it was breathtaking in its entitlement. That's stalking, David, said his voice tight with controlled anger. My father's attention shifted to him sizing up the perceived competition for influence. And you are David Caraway, Allison's fiancé. Fiancé. My mother's eyes widened, fixating on the emerald ring on my left hand. You're engaged and didn't tell us. I haven't told you anything for years, I pointed out. That was your choice, not mine. We're getting off track, my father interrupted impatiently. We're here about Jason. He needs your help, Allison. Professional help, not just money. I'm a financial consultant, not a criminal attorney. But you know people, he insisted. You have connections. Your firm handles wealthy clients. Surely one of them knows someone who could help Jason's case. I stared at him, incredulous. You want me to ask my high net worth clients to recommend a lawyer for my brother's investment fraud case? Do you understand what that would do to my professional reputation? It's family, my mother said, as if those two words explained and excused everything. No, I replied firmly. I won't jeopardize my career for Jason's criminal behavior. My father's face darkened. So your precious career matters more than your brother's freedom, than your parents' peace of mind. My career is what you're actually after, I pointed out. Not my presence, not my well-being, not a relationship with me. You want what my career can provide, money, connections, resources. You don't want me. You never did. That's not true, my mother protested, tears filling her eyes. We've always loved you, Allison. You're the one who pulled away, who thought you were too good for us. Karen, my father warned, but she continued. You've always been so cold, so judgmental. Jason made a mistake, yes, but at least he's loyal to his family. At least he calls on holidays. When was the last time you even asked how we were doing? The familiar guilt trip washed over me like a toxic wave, but this time I recognized it for what it was. Years of therapy had given me the tools to see the manipulation clearly. This conversation is over, I said quietly. Please leave now or I'll have security escort you out. You wouldn't dare, my father challenged. I nodded to the doorman who had been hovering discreetly nearby. Please call security. Wait, my father said, quickly lowering his voice. You don't want to make a scene in front of your fancy neighbors. We'll go, but think about this, Allison. If you don't help Jason, it could get worse for all of us. Is that a threat? David asked sharply. It's a reality, my father replied. Jason knows things about your firm, about your clients. He's desperate, and desperate people talk. A chill ran through me. What are you saying? I'm saying your brother has copies of some interesting documents from your firm. Client information. Nothing illegal, but certainly privileged. He thought you might want to protect your professional reputation. David stepped forward. That's blackmail. We're done here. Security arrived, two uniformed men who politely but firmly escorted my parents to the exit. As they left, my mother turned back, tears streaming down her face. We're still your parents, Allison. You can't just throw us away. The glass doors closed behind them, muffling her voice. I stood rooted to the spot, trembling with adrenaline and shock. Let's go upstairs, David said gently, guiding me toward the elevator. We need to figure out what Jason actually has and how to address it. Back in our condo, I called Sandra, my former mentor from Chicago, who had since moved to Barrett Global as Chief Compliance Officer. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, including the implied threat about client information. This is serious, Allison, she said after a long pause. If your brother actually has access to client data, that's a breach we need to address immediately. But I'm skeptical. How would he get this information? I have no idea, I admitted. He's never had access to my work. Unless a memory surfaced from my Chicago days. There was an incident at Wayland Partners. Jason showed up demanding money, made a scene. I thought it was contained, but what if he took something while he was there? A document from my desk, maybe. Possible, though unlikely to be current information, Sandra reasoned. Still, we need to investigate. I'll start internal security protocols. In the meantime, document everything your parents said and any communication from them or your brother. After hanging up, I checked my email and found a message that made my blood run cold. From an anonymous account, it contained a PDF attachment, a client contact list from Wayland Partners, dated from my time there with my handwritten notes in the margins. The message was brief, just a sample of what Jason has. $39,000 or these go public. More valuable Barrett Global documents to follow. I immediately forwarded it to Sandra, then collapsed onto the sofa, my professional world threatening to unravel around me. They're actually doing this, I whispered to David. They're trying to destroy my career if I don't pay. David sat beside me, his expression grave. We need a lawyer. Not just for the data breach, but for protection against your family. This is beyond dysfunctional, it's criminal. The next week passed in a blur of legal consultations, security investigations, and sleepless nights. Barrett Global's legal team took the threats seriously, bringing in cybersecurity experts to trace the anonymous email and assess the potential damage. They confirmed the document was authentic but outdated client information from 3 years earlier at a different firm. Then came the sixth betrayal, more devastating than I could have imagined. Barrett Global's head of HR called me into a meeting with legal counsel present. We've received a concerning communication, she began carefully. An email alleging inappropriate use of client information for personal investment advantage. I stared at her, uncomprehending. What? She slid a printed email across the table. It was addressed to Barrett Global's CEO from my mother's email account, claiming I had shared confidential client investment strategies with my parents for their personal financial gain. This is absurd, I said, my voice shaking. I've never shared client information with anyone, least of all my estranged parents. We believe you, Allison, the lawyer said. The timing and nature of these allegations coming right after the threatened blackmail suggest retribution rather than legitimate concerns. However, we're obligated to investigate any claim of impropriety. I was temporarily placed on administrative leave while they conducted their investigation. Though they assured me it was standard procedure and not punitive, the professional embarrassment was excruciating. Colleagues whispered. Clients asked questions. My carefully built reputation developed cracks. David was my rock throughout, consulting with his own family attorney who specialized in harassment cases. We obtained a cease and desist letter which was sent to my parents and Jason, warning them that further contact or threats would result in legal action. For a brief, blessed period, silence fell. The Barrett Global investigation cleared me completely, finding no evidence of impropriety. I returned to work, though the experience had left an indelible mark on my confidence and sense of security. They can't hurt you anymore, David assured me as we discussed wedding plans one evening. The lawyers have everything documented. If they try anything else, we'll file for a restraining order. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But deep down, I knew my family's capacity for betrayal had not yet reached its limit. The worst was still to come. Spring arrived in New York with a riot of cherry blossoms in Central Park and a renewed sense of possibility. Barrett Global's investigation had concluded months earlier, fully exonerating me. The firm had even taken extra steps to reassure my clients of my integrity, and my professional standing had largely recovered. David and I had set a wedding date for October, choosing a small venue in the Hudson Valley for an intimate ceremony with our chosen family and closest friends. The legal threats from my parents and Jason had dissipated after our attorney sent formal cease and desist letters. The brief respite had allowed me to refocus on my life and future, gradually lowering my guard as weeks of silence stretched into months. Then Taylor called, her voice unusually hesitant. Allison, I need to tell you something. Aunt Patricia is organizing a family reunion in Pittsburgh next month. Your parents are planning to attend. My stomach clenched. Okay. Thanks for the warning. That's not all, she continued reluctantly. Mom thinks you should come too. She says it's time to heal the family rift, especially before your wedding. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Heal the rift? After they tried to blackmail me and sabotage my career, I don't think so. I know, Taylor sighed. But Mom says there's been a development. Uncle Richard, your dad had a health scare last month. Minor heart attack. He's fine now, but it's made them reevaluate things, apparently. The news hit me harder than expected. Despite everything, some childish part of me still cared whether my parents lived or died. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But that doesn't change what they did. Of course not. I'm just passing along the information. Taylor paused. I'll be there regardless. So will Mom. It would be nice to see you, but we completely understand if you don't want to come. After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to David, who regarded me with concerned eyes. What are you thinking? He asked gently. I'm thinking it's a trap, I admitted. But I'm also thinking about what Dr. Martinez and I have discussed about closure. Maybe seeing them in a controlled environment with Aunt Patricia and Taylor present would help me finally close this chapter. David nodded slowly. If you decide to go, I'm coming with you. Non-negotiable. The decision weighed on me for days. I consulted Dr. Martinez, who neither encouraged nor discouraged the reunion. There's no right answer, she said. Consider what outcome would serve your healing best, regardless of their behavior. Eventually, I decided to attend. With strict boundaries in place, David would accompany me. We would stay in a hotel, not with family. We would attend only the main gathering, no private meetings with my parents. And we would leave immediately if the situation became toxic. The family reunion was scheduled for a Saturday in June at a rented pavilion in a Pittsburgh park. As David and I drove from our hotel to the venue, my anxiety mounted. I hadn't seen many of these relatives in over a decade, and the last communication from my immediate family had been threats and accusations. Remember, we can leave any time, David reassured me, squeezing my hand. You're doing this on your terms. The pavilion came into view, already filled with perhaps 30 people. I recognized Aunt Patricia immediately, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight, as she directed someone arranging food on a long table. Taylor spotted us first, waving enthusiastically and hurrying over to hug me. "You came, I wasn't sure you would." She embraced David as well, then lowered her voice. "Just so you know, they're over by the drinks table. They know you're coming, but promise to let you approach them when you're ready." I nodded, grateful for the warning. "Let's say hello to your mom first." Aunt Patricia's welcome was warm and genuine, her hug lingering. "I'm so proud of you for coming," she whispered. "And I've made it clear to everyone that no drama will be tolerated today." For the first hour, I successfully avoided my parents while reconnecting with distant cousins and aunts. Many seemed genuinely interested in my life in New York, asking about my work and wedding plans without judgment or agenda. The tension in my shoulders began to ease slightly. Eventually, inevitably, the moment arrived. I was filling a plate with fruit when I sensed a presence beside me. My mother, looking smaller than I remembered, her face lined with age. "Allison," she said softly, "thank you for coming." I nodded stiffly, not trusting myself to speak. "Your father and we'd like to talk with you. Just for a few minutes. Please." I glanced across the pavilion to where David was chatting with Taylor, keeping me in his line of sight. He raised an eyebrow in question. I nodded slightly. 5 minutes, I told my mother. "At that picnic table in the open where David can see us." She nodded quickly. "Of course. I'll get your father." They joined me at the designated table, my father, moving more slowly than I remembered, a slight wince crossing his face as he lowered himself onto the bench. "You look well," he said, eyes assessing me in that familiar way. "New York agrees with you." "I agree with me," I corrected. "That's what matters." My mother touched my father's arm, a silent signal to soften his approach. "Allison, we want to apologize for what happened. The threats, the accusations, it was wrong. We were desperate about Jason's situation and lost perspective." "Lost perspective," I repeated. "You tried to destroy my career. You stalked me. You blackmailed me." "We know," my father acknowledged, surprising me. "There's no excuse. But seeing me in the hospital made us realize life is short. Too short for this estrangement." I studied their faces, searching for the manipulation behind the contrition. To my surprise, they appeared genuinely remorseful. "What about Jason?" I asked. "Where is he in all this?" They exchanged glances. "Jason is getting help," my mother said carefully. "The legal issues were resolved with a plea deal, probation, and restitution payments. He's in a treatment program for gambling addiction, which apparently fueled his financial schemes. And we're no longer enabling him," my father added. "That was our mistake all along with both of you in different ways. We favored Jason to his detriment and neglected you to yours." The acknowledgement, however belated, struck me speechless. Was this real, or another sophisticated manipulation? "We don't expect forgiveness," my mother continued, tears welling in her eyes. "But we hoped perhaps for a new beginning. A chance to know the remarkable woman you've become, maybe even to be part of your wedding in some small way." Something softened in me, the long-buried child who had always craved parental recognition. "I don't know if that's possible," I said honestly. "There's too much damage." "We understand," my father said, nodding. "But we had to try. You're our daughter, Allison. Despite everything, we love you." The conversation continued, tentatively stilted but civil. They asked appropriate questions about David, about our wedding plans, about my work, careful to avoid any topics that might suggest ulterior motives. By the time we parted ways to rejoin the larger gathering, I felt a cautious optimism. Perhaps people really could change. Perhaps healing was possible. That hope lasted exactly 47 minutes. I was chatting with Taylor and a cousin when a metallic ping silenced the pavilion. My father stood at the center of the gathering, tapping a knife against a glass. If I could have everyone's attention for a moment, he called, I'd like to make an announcement. David appeared instantly at my side, his expression wary. What's happening? I don't know, I whispered. My father smiled broadly, the picture of paternal pride. As many of you know, our family has had its share of challenges lately. But today is a day of reconciliation and joy. Our daughter Allison has returned to us after many years away, building an impressive career in New York. Murmurs of approval rippled through the gathering. My unease grew. What many of you don't know, he continued, is that Allison has agreed to help her brother Jason through his current difficulties. She's generously pledged $39,000 to cover his legal expenses and restitution payments, demonstrating the true meaning of family loyalty. The blood drained from my face. What? I gasped. Let's all thank Allison for her generosity and welcome her back to the family fold, my father concluded triumphantly. Applause erupted as relatives turned to me with approving smiles. David's hand tightened on mine, steadying me. Did you? He began. No, I hissed. Absolutely not. This is a setup. Before I could process what was happening, Jason appeared from behind a cluster of relatives approaching with a broad smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sis, he called loudly. Thank you for coming through for me. I knew the Ice Queen act was just that, an act. He moved to embrace me, but I stepped back, rage replacing shock. I never agreed to give you money, I stated flatly, loudly enough for nearby relatives to hear. Jason's smile faltered, then returned more calculated than before. Come on, Allison. We discussed this earlier. The $39,000 to keep me out of jail. Don't back out now, not after Dad's announcement. I recognized the trap instantly. If I contradicted him publicly, I'd be the villain, the wealthy, selfish sister abandoning her troubled brother despite a supposed promise. If I said nothing, I'd be acknowledging a commitment I never made. This is a new low even for you, I told him quietly. I never promised you anything. Your exact words were, I'll consider it after speaking with David, Jason insisted loudly. That's why I waited to announce it until you both were here. You're lying, David interjected firmly. Allison hasn't spoken to you in years. My mother appeared beside Jason, her earlier contrition replaced by righteous indignation. Why are you doing this, Allison? First you agree to help, then you humiliate your brother in front of everyone. The coordinated attack became clear they had orchestrated the entire reunion as a public ambush, calculating that social pressure would force me to comply with their financial demands rather than expose their lies in front of the extended family. Aunt Patricia pushed through the growing crowd, her expression thunderous. What's going on here? Allison's backing out on her promise to help Jason, my mother announced dramatically. After everything we discussed, I looked around at the faces, watching the spectacle confused, cousins, judgmental aunts, uncertain distant relatives, and realized this moment would define my relationship with the extended family forever. I could capitulate to keep the peace, becoming a perpetual victim of my parents' manipulation, or I could finally break free regardless of how others perceived me. Drawing a deep breath, I spoke clearly and calmly. I never promised Jason money. I never discussed helping him with my parents. This entire reunion was orchestrated to publicly pressure me into paying for Jason's legal problems. I'm sorry you've all been used as pawns in their scheme. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the gathering. My father stepped forward, his face darkening. How dare you accuse us? I dare because it's true, I interrupted. You've been telling the family I abandoned you, that I refused to share my New York wealth despite your needs. The truth is, you abandoned me long before I left for college. You refused to help with my education, but paid for Jason's entirely. You only contacted me when you wanted money, and when I refused, you tried to blackmail me and damage my professional reputation. The pavilion had fallen completely silent, all eyes riveted on the unfolding drama. I came today hoping for reconciliation, believing you might have genuinely changed after Dad's health scare. Instead, you planned this public ambush to shame me into giving you $39,000. My mother's face contorted with anger. After everything we did for you. What exactly did you do for me? I challenged, years of repressed pain fueling my words. Forget my birthdays, miss my graduation, leave me at a mall when I was 9 years old, tell me what parenting accomplishment I should be grateful for. She had no answer, only sputtering indignation. Taking David's hand, I addressed the silent gathering one final time. I'm sorry this reunion was spoiled. It was good to see many of you again. But I won't be manipulated or guilt-tripped any longer, not even to maintain family appearances. As we walked away, Aunt Patricia fell into step beside us. I had no idea they were planning this, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I believed them when they said they wanted reconciliation. It's not your fault, I assured her. They've been lying to everyone for years. This was just the first time they did it while I was present to contradict them. Taylor appeared on my other side, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Allison. I should have known it was too good to be true. I hugged them both before getting into the car with David. As we drove away, I watched the family gathering recede in the side mirror, growing smaller until it disappeared entirely, just like the power my parents had held over me for so long. Are you okay? David asked, reaching for my hand. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. The final betrayal had shattered any lingering hope of reconciliation, but in doing so, it had also broken the last chains binding me to a toxic past. As painful as the experience had been, it had given me something invaluable, the certainty that I had tried everything possible and the freedom to finally truly walk away. 6 months after the disastrous family reunion, autumn painted Central Park in fiery oranges and deep reds. My life had settled into a new rhythm, one built on intentional choices rather than reactions to family chaos. The professional challenges created by my parents' interference had actually resulted in unexpected opportunities. Barrett Global had appointed me to lead a new division focused on multi-generational wealth management, recognizing my unique perspective on complex family dynamics. Congratulations on the Morrison account, Sandra said, stopping by my office one morning. That's the third ultra-high net worth family you've brought on this quarter. I smiled, acknowledging the accomplishment. They appreciated my transparency about protecting family assets from problematic members. Apparently, the Morrisons have their own version of Jason. Your ability to navigate those conversations authentically is becoming your signature strength, Sandra observed. Sometimes our deepest wounds create our greatest insights. That philosophy had become my guiding principle, transforming personal trauma into professional wisdom. I had developed a specialty in helping wealthy clients establish healthy boundaries around their assets, creating structures that provided for family needs without enabling destructive behaviors. My personal experience gave me credibility that colleagues with conventional backgrounds couldn't match. Our wedding plans had evolved as well. After the reunion debacle, David and I decided to simplify further, opting for a ceremony with just 20 guests at a boutique hotel overlooking the Hudson River. The date was 2 weeks away, and everything was falling into place with a sense of rightness that still occasionally surprised me. The florist confirmed the arrangements, David reported that evening as we reviewed wedding details. And the chef wants to know if we still want to substitute the salmon option with sea bass. Definitely sea bass, I confirmed. Rachel's allergic to salmon. David smiled. You're remarkably calm for someone getting married in 14 days. Because it feels right, I replied simply. No drama, no performance, no pleasing anyone but ourselves. The peaceful certainty I felt about our wedding extended to my decision regarding my family. After returning from Pittsburgh, I had engaged in several intense therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez, working through the grief and finality of the reunion experience. You need closure, she had suggested. Not for them, but for yourself. What would that look like? The question led me to arrange one final meeting with my parents, not for reconciliation, but for clarity. I selected a coffee shop near Grand Central Station, public enough to discourage dramatics, but private enough for honest conversation. David waited at a separate table nearby, present, but giving me space to handle this myself. My parents arrived together, looking uncertain in the Manhattan setting. My father had aged visibly since the reunion, the health scare evident in his thinner frame and more careful movements. My mother's nervous energy manifested in constant adjustments to her scarf, her purse, her coffee cup. "Thank you for coming," I began formally. "I wanted to meet one last time to achieve clarity between us." "Does this mean you're reconsidering helping Jason?" my mother asked immediately. I nearly laughed at the predictability. "No. This meeting isn't about money. It's about truth." I placed a folder on the table between us. "This contains documentation of my childhood and our adult relationship. School records showing my achievements that you never acknowledged. Emails requesting your presence at graduations. Financial records proving I paid for my own education while you covered Jason's entirely. And most recently, evidence of your attempts to damage my career through false accusations and blackmail." They stared at the folder but didn't touch it. "I'm not sharing this to hurt you or seek apologies," I continued. "I'm sharing it because I want absolute clarity between us about why I'm establishing permanent boundaries." "Permanent boundaries," my father echoed. "What does that mean?" "It means I will no longer have any contact with you. No calls, no emails, no visits. I won't attend family gatherings where you're present. I'm removing myself completely from your sphere of influence." "You're disowning us," my mother's voice rose with indignation. "After everything?" "This isn't about disowning anyone," I interrupted firmly. "This is about protecting myself from further harm. The pattern is clear and hasn't changed since my childhood. You see me not as a daughter to love, but as a resource to exploit." "That's not fair," my father protested weakly. "It's completely fair," I countered. "Your actions have demonstrated your priorities consistently for 34 years. When I was achieving academically, you were focused on Jason's baseball games. When I needed support for college, you refused. When I built a successful career, you only reached out for money. When I declined to give it, you tried to destroy my professional reputation." I tapped the folder. "It's all documented here. Not as ammunition, but as reality." My mother's face crumpled in a familiar display of tears. "We made mistakes, Allison. All parents do. But we're still your parents. Biology created that connection," I acknowledged. "But relationships require reciprocity and respect. You've demonstrated neither." My father, ever practical, cut to the chase. "So what happens now? With the wedding, with family gatherings, with—" He hesitated, then finished reluctantly with Jason's ongoing legal issues. "As I said, I'm establishing permanent boundaries. You will not be invited to my wedding. I won't attend events where you're present. I'll maintain relationships with Aunt Patricia and Taylor separately. As for Jason, his legal issues are his responsibility, not mine." The finality in my voice seemed to penetrate at last. My father's shoulders slumped slightly while my mother's tears stopped, replaced by a cold assessment. "You always thought you were better than us," she said bitterly. "This just proves it." I shook my head, feeling not anger but a profound sadness. "I never thought I was better than you. I just wanted to be valued by you. When that proved impossible, I learned to value myself." Standing to leave, I left the folder on the table. "Keep this or don't, it's your choice. But I wanted you to understand this decision isn't impulsive or emotional. It's based on a lifetime of evidence." My father's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "You can't just walk away from family, Allison." I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. "I'm not walking away from family," I corrected him. I'm walking toward it, the family I've chosen and built, the people who love me for who I am, not what I can provide. David joined me as I headed toward the exit. My mother called after us, "This isn't over, Allison. Family is forever." I didn't turn back. It was over. The realization brought not pain but profound relief. The day of our wedding dawned clear and crisp, perfect October weather for the intimate ceremony we had planned. In the hotel suite overlooking the Hudson River, Rachel helped me with final adjustments to my simple ivory sheath dress. "You look radiant," she said, securing the small diamond hairpin that had been her gift to me, completely at peace. "I am," I realized with mild surprise. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I should be, with exactly who I should be with. A soft knock at the door revealed Aunt Patricia, elegant in a blue dress that matched her eyes, my eyes. "May I come in?" Rachel excused herself tactfully, as my aunt entered, emotion evident on her face. "I have something for you," she said, opening her clutch and removing a small velvet box. "My mother's pearls. 3 generations of women in our family have worn them on their wedding day." The single strand of creamy pearls gleamed as she fastened them around my neck. "Perfect," she declared, her voice thick with emotion. "You are the best of us, Allison. The strongest, the bravest." "I learned it from you," I said, embracing her carefully to avoid wrinkling either of our dresses. "You showed me what real family support looks like, even when it wasn't easy." She wiped away a tear. "I only wish I had done more sooner." "You did exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it," I assured her. "And today you're giving me away. That means everything." The ceremony was everything we had hoped for, intimate, authentic, filled with genuine love and support. As Aunt Patricia walked me down the short aisle toward David, I felt a sureness in each step, a certainty that had been hard-won through years of struggle and self-discovery. Our vows, written together over late-night discussions about what marriage truly meant to us, emphasized choice over obligation, growth over stagnation, and partnership over possession. "I choose you today and every day," David promised, his voice steady and sure. "Not because of duty or expectation, but because loving you makes me more fully myself." My own vows acknowledged the journey that had brought me to this moment. "I come to you whole, not seeking completion but connection. I bring my strength and my vulnerability, my past and my future, offering them freely because you have shown me what real love looks like, not a transaction but a gift." The celebration afterward was joyful, without being excessive, meaningful, without being solemn. Rachel danced with Taylor, discovering shared interests beyond their connection to me. Aunt Patricia charmed David's father with stories of her travels. My colleagues mingled easily with David's architect friends. It was a seamless blending of our chosen circles, proof that family could be created through intention rather than merely inherited through birth. A week after returning from our honeymoon in Portugal, I received an unexpected letter. The return address was from a cousin I barely remembered, Jenny, a distant relative on my father's side who had attended the fateful family reunion. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Allison, asterisk. We've never really known each other, but after witnessing what happened at the reunion, I can't stop thinking about your courage. I'm writing to thank you for standing up for yourself that day. Watching you refuse to be manipulated gave me the strength to finally leave my own toxic relationship. Asterisk. Asterisk. For years, I stayed with someone who diminished and controlled me because I thought that's what loyalty meant. Seeing you choose self-respect over false family harmony showed me another way. I've moved out, started therapy, and am rebuilding my life. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that your boundaries didn't just protect you. They inspired others. Asterisk. Asterisk. With gratitude. Asterisk. Asterisk. Jenny, Asterisk. The letter moved me deeply, reinforcing that our actions ripple outward in ways we cannot predict. What I had done for my own survival had somehow helped someone else find their courage. This realization sparked an idea. After discussing it with David, I approached Barrett Global about establishing a scholarship fund for students without family financial support. The Mitchell Carraway Scholarship would cover not just tuition but living expenses, books, and emergency funds for students who, like me, were navigating higher education without a family safety net. I want to turn my experience into something constructive, I explained to the firm's foundation director. These students aren't lacking ambition or ability, they're lacking the support systems that many take for granted. The firm agreed to match my personal contribution, creating a substantial endowment that would help dozens of students annually. The first recipients would begin their college journeys the following fall, carrying forward a legacy built not on biological connection but on understanding and empathy. On a snowy evening in December, David and I hosted dinner in our Gramercy Park condo. Around our tables sat the people who mattered most. Rachel and her now fiancé Michael, Taylor and her new boyfriend, Aunt Patricia, Sandra and her husband, and two couples from our closest friendship circle. The conversation flowed, easily punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. As I looked around at these beloved faces, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A Cleveland area code. Another attempt from my parents, no doubt. The holiday season often triggered renewed efforts at contact, usually accompanied by financial requests disguised as reconciliation attempts. 6 months earlier, such a call would have sent me spiraling into anxiety. Now I simply silenced the phone and returned it to my pocket, the intrusion holding no power over my present joy. "Everything okay?" David asked quietly. "Everything is perfect," I replied, meaning it completely. The journey from neglected child to confident adult had been long and often painful. But sitting there, surrounded by genuine love, I felt profound gratitude for every step of the path. My parents had forgotten I existed until they needed something from me, but in doing so, they had inadvertently given me the greatest gift, the freedom to create a life and family of my own choosing, built on a foundation of mutual respect, unconditional love. That was worth more than $39,000 or any amount could ever buy. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had to establish boundaries with family members who only remembered you when they needed something, drop a comment below sharing your experience. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories, and share with anyone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Wishing you strength and peace on your own journey.